Hi. Okay, so welcome to the crowdfunding breakout room. This is very exciting. I'm just going to share my screen for a moment so that I can introduce our very special guest, which we'll hear from in a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And just like in the main room, whenever you are just sort of like listening to the information that Birdie's prepared to us, you can keep your microphone on mute, and then Birdie will ask for questions at various times, and then you can feel free to open up your unmute yourself and open up your voice box and speak. So here I go. I'm just getting this to be right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so this is kind of what we're going to do in the next roughly 50 minutes. We've got with us today a very exciting person who we've been working with for a few years, actually. His name is Birdie. Hi, Birdie. And he is a crowdfunding professional. So we met him when he was a senior coach at Crowdfunder UK, which is a website that we had a partnership with, and he can tell you a bit more about that. And he came to speak with our entrepreneurs about being a part of Crowdfunder UK. But actually for 5 years, he's been teaching businesses, charities, and social enterprises how to crowdfund successfully through his own business, actually, where he consults people on how to make amazing crowdfunders and raise tons of money or reach their goals, really. So Birdie, thank you so much for being here. He is the founder, like you guys, of his crowdfunding consultancy, The Crowdfunding Coach. And he's going to take over this screen share and tell us all of his wisdom. Welcome, Birdie.
Hello, everyone. And thank you very much, Adele. Very excited to be here with you all, as always. It's very exciting and inspiring for me because you're all setting up businesses or social enterprises or community organizations. And it's always very encouraging to see entrepreneurship here in the UK, where people are looking at the opportunities that they recognize in front of them and doing something positive and progressive about it. So, as Adele mentioned, we've worked crowdfunding into turn programs over the last few years. And I'm going to give you a brief introduction, really, into how it all works, because crowdfunding is actually very logical. It makes a lot of sense when you go through it with me, I hope. But it's tough and it's a big subject. So it's simply about just putting the time in and going through the preparation phase, and we'll give you all of the tools you need should you wish to go ahead and run a crowdfunding campaign of your own. So in this session, as Adele mentioned, I'll ask if you've got any questions throughout at various different stages, and that way it gives us a good opportunity to reflect on the content that's just gone. So yes, do speak up. I'd love to hear from you. And we're going to look at specifically how crowdfunding works, the key 3 stages of preparation, which we call the planning phase, creating phase, and running phase, that's involved in a crowdfunding campaign, and what particularly looks at a good project or makes a good project. And that should be enough to get you interested, whet your appetite for a little bit more, and then I might have the pleasure of meeting you again later down the line in your program. So Tim put a really good presentation together just now describing the different funding methods, and I think he describes crowdfunding very similarly to how I do, because in its most basic form, crowdfunding is essentially raising money online in relatively small amounts from lots of different people. Typically, crowdfunding is actually a short exercise. So most crowdfunding campaigns only run for 4 weeks, and the minimum time that you want to prepare it is usually about 4 weeks too. So the longer you have to prepare, the better you'll do, that's for sure. But typically people like it because it's quite a fast method of finance. And that crowdfunding is what we call an unrestricted method of finance, because you're receiving money on a goodwill basis from people, individuals like you and me, but also businesses, organizations, and other groups. But it's less formal and regulated and strict to perhaps your responsibilities with a loan or angel investor. So specifically, we'll talk about donations and rewards-based crowdfunding, because I'm sure you've heard of the term crowdfunding before, but it can apply to equity campaigns. There's a lot of people out there raising money through equity-based crowdfunding campaigns where they're selling shares or giving away a percentage of their business. But that's not what we're doing. We're doing a type of crowdfunding where you're able to receive donations, which means people can contribute money to your crowdfunding campaign expecting nothing in return, purely because you're doing something good and they want to support you. Hence why Tim mentioned that crowdfunding is good for social enterprise or community interest companies or community projects. So the average amount donated in this industry to a campaign is about £20. And when we talk about rewards, this means offering a benefit of some kind in return for that financial contribution. So it's an incentive for people to pledge, because not only can they give money to support you, but they get something in return, which makes it more exciting and more of a two-way process. And the reason why we like rewards-based crowdfunding is because in the industry, the projects that offer rewards, it increases that amount donated, the average, from £20 to £50. So we know that rewards-based campaigns can raise more money. But they're also a fantastic way for new businesses to try out selling products. And it's a really great way of pre-selling perhaps your products that you're going to be launching your business with or social enterprise, and getting a sense of how interested people are in them. So it's essentially, crowdfunding is a marketing exercise which enables us to tell our story, to understand who our audience is and who might support us, what they might want in return, and how we reach them. So essentially, crowdfunding is this incredible accelerator program in itself, because you learn so much about your general business and the behavior of your target audience in a very short process of about 2 months. So this is a bit old now, 2018, but I just wanted to share with you my some of my crowdfunding campaigns, because I teach people to crowdfund, but I've also done it a few times myself. And I'm going to show you two examples of one, a rewards-based campaign, and then I'm going to show you a pure, strictly donation-only style campaign. So I like to think of myself as an entrepreneur too, just like you. And in fact, the Crowdfunding Coach, which is my consultancy business, is only really a year old, and it was very much inspired to start by working with Adele and Fred. So quite a lot of the work that we'll perhaps do together, I'll be doing for myself as well. So it's quite useful. But back in 2018, I wanted to publish a magazine. And this magazine was telling the story of 10 different social enterprises and community businesses throughout the UK that I had helped to raise money through crowdfunding. It was all done to focus on poor mental health in society today and celebrating these 10 social businesses who had creative and innovative approaches to tackling poor mental health in society. So what I needed to do was raise £13,000, and raising £13,000 would enable me to take a crew, a photographer, a filmmaker, and myself around the UK to interview and film these 10 different businesses. The £13,000 also would pay for a designer to create the magazine, and it would also pay for the printing of the magazine and its distribution. So as you can see, it was a successful crowdfunding campaign because we had 393 people support it. And it's a very good example of a rewards-based campaign, because the obvious thing is that the project is all about publishing a magazine. So the magazine is the principal reward. What we're saying is, if you pledge £10, then in return, once we've made this magazine and published it, you will get a copy of the magazine back in return for your support. So I was essentially pre-selling magazines through crowdfunding, and there were different ways that I could encourage people to support me. £10 for a magazine, they could pay £250 to advertise in a single page in the magazine. They could pay £400 for a double spread, or perhaps they could buy 10 or the 10 magazines or magazines in bulk. So hopefully that gives you an idea of a simple reward style campaign, where that's the clear motivation that they want to support me because they get something interesting in return. My next example is a donation campaign. So I was raising money for a charity called the Maiden Factor Foundation. They promote education for girls around the world. And I organized 30 friends to run around the coast of Cornwall, which is 300 miles long in the southwest of England. And we had 30 people running 10 miles each, and each of the 30 people had to raise money to take part in this race, this relay challenge. And we raised £4,523 from, I think, 183 supporters. So in this case, people are just backing or supporting the campaign because of the message of supporting the Maiden Factor Foundation, promoting education for girls. It's a charity campaign. They don't get anything in return, but we're doing something physical and hopefully impressive that's going to incentivize people to support us. So two different styles of campaigns. One's rewards based and one's donation only. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the types of crowdfunding platform, because there are many out there, which I'm sure you've heard of, and they all do quite different things. And in particular, we'll start with Crowdfunder UK. This is where I've worked and learned how to crowdfund myself. Crowdfunder UK is based in the UK, and it is what we call the generalist, in that it allows for the widest range of styles of crowdfunding campaign. You can be a charity, you can be a business, you can be a social enterprise, you can fundraise for a charity. It's very broad, and its unique selling point is that it works with councils, local authorities, corporations, businesses to create match funding opportunities where, if I'm a social business or a charity, I can apply to these match funding opportunities. And when I run a crowdfunding campaign, they can pledge money from these match funds onto my campaign. So that's the unique selling point behind Crowdfunder UK. Kickstarter is an American website. It's incredibly popular and famous, and it's specifically for creative projects. So it could be perhaps a game that you're putting together. It could be a magazine. It could be a film. It could be a new product. It's very visual, and it's very good at offering reward style campaigns when you're buying into this creative project and you get the creative product that they're selling in return. But what we'll talk about a little bit later is funding methods, because there's two types: all or nothing or keep what you raise. Kickstarter only allows projects that set an all or nothing target. So they choose a target and they must hit it. Whereas some of the other platforms are a bit more flexible and offer these two different funding methods for you to choose from. Indiegogo is another international platform, and it is a special, its specialty is tech-related products. So entrepreneurs that have designed and are introducing a new tech product to market. Just Giving is mostly for charities, for fundraising. So there isn't a reward element to Just Giving. People, if they're running a marathon, let's say for Cancer Research UK, would use Just Giving. And GoFundMe is quite what we call personal fundraising. So if I need money for vet bills, God forbid, if my dog was sick and I needed vet bills, they're expensive, I'd choose GoFundMe as the platform of choice. So it's more of an emergency style platform to encourage a community of people to support you when you're in a difficult situation. So the principal platform that you'll be using should you crowdfund at a later date will be Crowdfunder UK, because that one has the broadest appeal and is I think has the best opportunities for community style projects, which suit the Entrepreneurial Refugee Network very well. But crowdfunding is a tool we can use to tackle society's greatest challenges, because what's fantastic about it is that you're raising awareness, you're teaching people, you're bringing something to their attention, and they are voting with their financial support for the things that they really care about. So we see crowdfunding as this incredible online tool which reaches every single corner of the world and explores every single type of issue you can imagine when we're looking at societal challenges. So it's a very interesting place to have a look at, and I would encourage you to view those platforms and see what types of projects are crowdfunding at the moment, because it gives you a reflection of what's happening in the world. So a bit of a silly slide, but I always include it nonetheless. How does crowdfunding work? You have a nice idea and you put it on the website and it magically gets funded. Perfect. Sounds great. But unfortunately, that's not true. And we have to quickly dispel that myth, because for a lot of people, crowdfunding is this silver bullet. Oh, great, I'll just put it on the internet and the internet will fund it. But there aren't people waiting out there for your campaign to come along. They're not actively looking. You do all of the hard work to get it there. And here's how it really works. So what you would do is you'd add a project to this, in this case, Crowdfunder UK. You create a page to tell your story of who you are, what you're doing, why it's important, and how it's going to happen. You set a target of what you'd like to raise and the time in which you'd like to raise it, which is typically for 4 weeks. You add a range of rewards you can offer to encourage people to support you and to elicit higher donations or a higher value contributions. You research your network map. So these websites won't provide you with an audience. You've got to find them yourself. And that's what you'll learn with me, if you choose to crowdfund, is how to understand all of the different individuals, businesses, groups, communities, organizations that you need to reach to promote your campaign, to get them interested in what you're doing and to support it financially. So the network is the biggest and most important part of the crowdfunding campaign, because just imagine if all you do is set up the page and you immediately push it live, after you've sent it to maybe 5 family members and your friends, who else are you going to send it to? So it's really important to get that frame of mind. What am I going to do across this 4-week period to promote the campaign? And that's why we need to create a marketing plan. And I think that might sound a bit scary, and I don't want to scare anyone off, because a marketing plan sounds very corporate and very perhaps intimidating if it's not something you've done before. But what I mean by this marketing plan in a crowdfunding context is just a calendar or a timeline of 1 to 28 days, including the activities that you are going to do to promote this campaign. Because we know it's not going to promote itself. So you need to, before you start, create this calendar of activities of what you're going to do each day to promote the campaign into the different groups, individuals, businesses, communities that you discover in your network map. Once you've done that, you'll be ready to go live and launch your project. You'll then share the link to your crowdfunder page with your network and raise the money you need. And the most important thing that you need to bear in mind is that once your crowdfunding campaign is finished, your journey is not over. You have the obligation to fulfill all your commitments on the rewards and thank your supporters. So like me, one of the most time-consuming parts of crowdfunding was actually sending out all of the magazines after the crowdfunding campaign had ended. And I wrote personal notes to everyone. And with nearly 400 supporters, that takes a long time. So you've got to make sure, as Tim said in the previous session, what is my timeline and how long is this going to take me? And to really, really think hard about that and put it into your plan. What happens after you finish your marketing plan? So, as mentioned earlier, there's two different ways of crowdfunding. You set your target in each case. You can either choose an all or nothing target, which means you have to hit your target or the money's refunded. Or you can choose a flexible funding option, which is keep what you raise. So even if you don't hit your target, the money still lands in your bank account. So setting a target is balancing between what's realistic from your crowd and what is needed to make the project happen. So we always start with the minimum needed and plan to overfund, because we know that if we're starting businesses, we don't have big networks, and therefore the amount that we're going to be raising on crowdfunding is going to be limited. So we need to be realistic. But the good news is crowdfunding is open to everyone and anyone, really. So businesses, schools, charities, authors, social enterprises, filmmakers, restaurants, sports clubs, individuals, community groups. Everyone can crowdfund. The science behind it is the same. So if you can crowdfund for one, you can crowdfund for all of them. So it's a very, very useful skill in life. And what does Crowdfunder or any other social platform crowdfunding platform get out of this? There are fees attached. So I've got two slides here because when we talk about Crowdfunder UK, they have two different fee models. So for social enterprises, Crowdfunder doesn't take a fee, but in each case, you always pay the transaction fee. So Stripe, as you can see there, charges 2.4% of what you raise, plus 20 pence per pledge, plus VAT. So for businesses, if you're a for-profit business, Crowdfunder will take 5%, and then you pay the Stripe fee as well. So the money isn't paid up front, it's just taken off what you raise at the end. So once your campaign is closed, it'll take the money off. So it's really important to work out what your fees are going to be and estimate the cost of running a campaign so that when you set your target, you're sure that, okay, if let's say my fees in the case of a social enterprise, if I'm roughly paying about, let's say 3%, and I need to raise £10,000, then your fees are going to be £300. So you need to work out specifically that and incorporate it into your target. What I mean by the optional tip, that is actually not charged to yourself, it's charged to the supporter. So every supporter has the option of contributing to the platform. So by 5%, if they want to pledge £100 onto a campaign, the platform will ask them, would you like an optional tip of 5%? So it'll be £105, and that means 5% goes to the platform, and that helps them pay for their ability to offer the campaign at 0% fees to social enterprises. I hope that makes sense. So when you're thinking about what fee structure, if you're a social enterprise, you can do it for 0%, but you'll still pay the Stripe fee. If you're a business, you'll do 5%, which is a for-profit fee, and you'll pay the Stripe fee as well. So why crowdfund? Hopefully you are interested over what we've covered so far, but I'm very passionate about crowdfunding because it really is an accelerator, as mentioned before, in all areas of how you would intend to manage a business anyway. So number one, validation. We know that if we can get 100 or so people to support ourselves in our crowdfunding campaign, then we know that there's a demand for what it is that we're doing, that it's socially recognized as something that's necessary for society or business. And therefore people have voted in that sense by supporting our campaign. And it's really useful to, when you're looking for perhaps funding in the future, when you go back to the bank, the loans or the angel investors, you say, look, I ran a crowdfunding campaign previously. I got hundreds of people to support me, which is a very good example of the demand for your service. Next one, awareness. So crowdfunding is a marketing exercise. What you're going to do, as mentioned, is identify who your audience is before you start, and you're going to reach out to them over a 4-week period. So you're going to be introducing yourselves and your project to those who you hope will be your customers. And as a consequence of that, you can't help but raise the profile of what it is you're doing when you're crowdfunding, because the natural product of running a crowdfunding campaign is that you need to speak with people about what you're doing, and therefore it raises awareness. Advocacy. So the people who support our crowdfunding campaign, whether they donate or choose a reward, it's a special relationship because you're asking for support. You're putting yourself in front and center stage and telling them exactly about what you're doing and asking them to help you. And it creates a special kind of bond, which means that I can remember every single campaign I've supported, and I tend to follow their journey into the future. And I'm proud of my commitment in supporting them. So once you finish your crowdfunding campaign, you get access to the data. The data will tell you who has supported you and who has opted in to hear from you in the future. So you can create this crowd and take some of it with you, which is a very valuable thing for a new business. And of course, next, learn new skills. You're going to learn how to tell your story. You're going to think about which social channels you need to start up to reach your audience. You need to think about what communication or messaging people respond to most. And you're going to think about how you can adapt your process from what you've learned in this crowdfunding campaign. And lastly, extra funding. There might be extra funding opportunities for you through the crowdfunding process in the form of match funding. So when not to crowdfund, if you're too busy, a lack of planning and time set aside, if you've got an unclear or unconvincing story, no obvious public or supporter benefit, an attitude where you'll think, I know a celebrity, I'll just get them to post about it and it'll fund itself, or relying on one group or source of funding to solve your problem for you. So crowdfunding takes time, takes energy, it takes purpose and passion and hard work. It's not something to be taken on lightly, and it will only work if you jump through all of the hoops. And what makes a good project is finding people that can help you to come along with the journey, a network of supporters, so identifying who your audience is before you start, and a convincing story. Those 3 things. So I think it would be good to just answer any questions before we move on to the next 3 short sections. So would anyone like to ask a question? Is it all sinking in? Does it make sense? Diana.
Bertie,
Hi, Diana.
I'm just wondering, between the all or nothing option and keeping what you've raised, like, why would anyone go for the all or nothing if you're crowdfunding? What's the benefit, or why would people, what would you recommend?
That's a really good question. And because all or nothing seems pretty scary and ridiculous, doesn't it? But it's actually the recommended method of funding, because from my point of view, it means that you as a crowdfunder will be really strict with yourselves about what your target should be. So it makes you realistic, because it's very easy to say, oh, well, I need £100,000, and crowdfunding campaigns which go for vast or big amounts of money, they never really get off the ground, and it's an unconvincing story when people land on projects that are really struggling. So it really helps us focus on the minimum we need, and it also inspires a bit of urgency in our messaging, because we're able to say, if let's say we've got 20% left of our target to go, we've got to hit that target, otherwise we won't receive any of the funding. So please, at this point, we really need your support and would value your help. And there's no limit to what you can raise. So the strategy that's best employed is to choose a small target, to hit it quickly, and then stretch your target as much as you can beyond that. Because everything that you raise after you've hit your initial target is treated as flexible funding. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay,
thank you.
Good, thanks. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, I've got one
question.
Yes, one more question.
Yeah, you were talking about charities. Do you have to be a registered charity, or can you be a social enterprise? Is it a question of, in terms of being exempt from fees?
So again, that's a good question. When you're being exempt from fees, I had a little look at this before, because they've been changing it quite recently, but it doesn't look like you need any registration material. It's a self-selecting option. You just need, in any case, your bank details and identification.
Okay.
So it's pretty liberal in that sense.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Victoria. Any other questions? I think we had one more.
So I was about to ask Bertie, how do you go about updating your funders after your campaign?
Okay, thanks, Patrick. So what you'll have is access to the data afterwards. So when someone makes a contribution to your campaign, they will, if they choose a reward, you'll have direct access to contact them. And if it's a physical reward, then they'll supply you with address details so you can send it to them. But in any case, people opt in to or out of receiving communications from you in terms of marketing in the future, but you always have the option to update people about the crowdfunding campaign that is considered to be legitimate interest in what you're doing. So it's best really to, once you've finished your campaign, is to download all of the data. It comes in an Excel spreadsheet, and from that it'll tell you exactly who you need to contact about any rewards. But after that, there is a a function called the update function, which lives on the page. And using that, you can send out general project updates about what it is you're doing, and keeping people abreast of your progress.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to continue.
Bertie, so sorry,
Yeah.
there's one more question here in the chat.
Okay.
It says, what happens if the project fails or you don't raise enough? What happens to the rewards that they promised to give?
So it depends on the funding method that you choose. If you have chosen a flexible funding target, it means that you don't have to hit your target. You'll keep whatever you raise. You still draw down the money. It'll be deposited in your bank account within 7 days of your project closing. But with an all or nothing campaign, you don't have to do anything. If you didn't hit your target, the money is simply refunded back to your supporters. So there would be no rewards to deliver, no obligations to anyone in that case. It's important also, though, when you're choosing a flexible funding target, to make sure that you can raise, you can still make good on your promise to deliver the rewards, even if you raise less. But we'll perhaps have another chance to answer some questions at the end, because we've got a few bits of presentation left to get through.
Okay, yeah, we've got another question in the chat, but why don't you go ahead and then we will have some more questions at the end. Thanks, Bertie.
Yeah, okay. So look at planning your project. So there are 4 pieces of work associated with a crowdfunding campaign. We need to create a page, make a video. You can run a crowdfunding campaign without a video, but it's a very useful medium when it comes to marketing your project and telling your story. So it's highly advised. Campaigns with videos are more successful, and it's something that Turn in particularly really want to see from its entrepreneurs. You identify your network. So you never launch a crowdfunding campaign without understanding very kind of deeply about exactly who it is you're going to be sending the link to and sharing it with. So the individuals, the friends and family, businesses, community groups, etc. We'll have a little bit of a look at that in a moment. And you're going to make a marketing plan. That's going to tell you exactly what you need to do from day 1 to day 28 of the 4 weeks of you're running a crowdfunding campaign. So the network map is, in this instance, I've just got a very basic mind map to show you, but I think this exercise is best done on a spreadsheet. So perhaps creating a general spreadsheet for your campaign, and separate on each tab, you can have one of these headings. So it's very useful to find team members when you're crowdfunding. This can be people who are loosely part of your project. In the magazine, for example, I was crowdfunding, but I had a filmmaker, a designer, and a photographer. I considered them my team, and I knew that between them, by no stretch of the imagination, could they not find 20 friends and family themselves to contribute to my campaign. So I know that between the 4 of us, there's easy access to 80 people from our friends and family network. So try, when you're putting together a crowdfunding campaign, to find people who can support you along the way and be involved in the process, because then you can request that they support you with sharing the link to their own friends and family. So beyond our friends and family, we start with them because we want to get easy money on the page first. This is about supporter numbers. It gives us what's called the social proof that there's a community of people behind us. And that social proof is what convinces other people who are less familiar with what we're doing that this is a project people are getting behind, and there's a herd mentality in that sense that people like successful projects, and if they see other people getting involved, then they will do so themselves too. existing supporters. So over the next few months of your work in the program, you're going to be developing your ideas, your businesses, your enterprises, and your accounts and your social media. So what you need to start doing is creating conversations and relationships with people. It might be that you've started something already, and therefore you'll have access to, maybe it's a mailing list, maybe it's those people on your newsletter, or customers that you can send a link to as well. So if you're an established business at this stage, then it's trying to organize your customers and supporters in such a way that you can access them during your crowdfunding campaign. And if you're starting out, then it means really working hard to develop your own audiences and doing that before you start. And that means developing usually your social media channels. So when we think about media, of course, that's the Instagram, that's Facebook, could be TikTok, whatever social tools are the most used by your intended audience. You need to find representation for yourselves on those outlets. But similarly, we also talk about traditional media. So local papers in particular are very, very good at getting support for your project. So if you're based in Manchester, based in London, making lists of all of the different local papers, local news outlets that you can get in touch with who want a positive news story, and that you can try and pinpoint an article for yourself during the time that you're live with your crowdfunding campaign. But making lists of local people who perhaps are influential in their area. That could be councillors, it could be MPs, it could be business leaders, it could be those people who are influencers within the area in which you're working, who have had success in the past, or have an established following that you can speak with. Local businesses. One of the benefits of this day and age is that everyone has an established usual social media account. So what you're trying to do here, particularly if you're running something that has community benefit, is get local businesses on side and request that they share a post about your crowdfunding campaign once you're live. And similarly with social media groups, Facebook in particular is very good for communities. So if you think about the key themes of the work that you're doing, if, for example, I was crowdfunding not too long ago for my village hall, as a favor to my village hall community. I helped them do one, and they were trying to renovate their village hall, so it was improving the service for everyone there. So I, through social media, tried to contact all of the different societies, groups associated with my particular area, and request that they share the promotion of my crowdfunding campaign. Partners might be someone like Turn, who's helping you through this program, or anyone that you have an affiliation with, perhaps any other programs you've been on, anyone who's shown support with you in your campaign. But the point is, we want to be really thorough with our network maps and to be very, very good at making lists of potential individuals, groups, businesses and communities who can share or support our message. So I think it's a good excuse to start building up your social presence on particularly these three channels, which work very well for crowdfunding: Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And to start posting. So be brave, be active, don't wait. It's a really good tip, I think, to start somewhere and to get going. Be creative, offer fresh content to that audience, be a thought leader in your area, engage with people, ask questions. That's how you develop social presence and interaction. So the creating the project phase is really simple. It just requires you to visit Crowdfunding UK. You would just go through the motions of filling in the information that it requests. So you create a project page, which will tell your story of who you are, what you're doing, why it's important, and how it's going to happen. You fill in some information about extra funding opportunities. Should there be any that are suitable for you, it'll find them. Set your target. You can ignore regular donations for now. You add rewards that are available, and you'll need a UK registered bank account and your ID to run a campaign. But the point is, this is something that you can keep coming back to. It'll stay in draft mode and you can continue to edit it as you go. So setting your target, you want to make sure it's as realistic as possible. Start with the minimum you need and put in a plan to overfund. Make sure you account for any fees and the costs of giving rewards. Choose a target that's tangible. So it's often effective, for example, to say £2,000 will allow us to rent an office for 3 months, instead of saying we just need any amount of money for no particular reason. Be specific. Lock down key pledges ahead of the live date and have a good grasp of where the first 25% will come from. Don't choose a huge target without a plan to back it up. And don't send the project out to the entire audience on 0%. We work through our audiences very slowly. And we can work out your target because we know the average pledge is £50. So if, let's say, you need to raise, let's say you needed to raise £2,000, divide by that 50, that means you need 40 supporters. And we know that 1 in 20 people who view your page make a financial contribution. So you multiply the 40, which is the number of supporters, by 20, which gives you 800. So you need 800 people to view your page. So I think, unfortunately, we're running out of time. Is it possible to keep
We've extended by 5 minutes, Bertie. So is there any chance that you could finish by like 7:11 so we could just ask one question and then I could just wrap it up? We're here till 7:15.
Okay, sure.
Sorry about that, bud.
Okay, so my fault. So I think we've talked about the story. A video is going to be something that you can do. It's just a short, sweet 2-minute piece of creative that's going to better tell your story. And I think perhaps I'll send the presentation out and we can answer any questions that you've got, because unfortunately we haven't managed to cover all of it in the time that we've got. Did anyone have any questions at this stage?
I feel like you're being really thorough, Bertie.
Possibly too thorough.
You're so thorough. Does anyone have any questions while we've got Bertie in the room? We still have 5 minutes, so I just have a 2-minute thing at the end. So
Okay.
Bertie, if you want to continue for 3 minutes and we have no questions.
Okay.
Go crazy.
So why do people pledge? So it falls into 3 different categories. They either like your idea, they want to support you as an individual because they know you and you're asking for their help, or they want a reward available. So the crowdfunding sweet spot is to make sure that you're doing something good for society, aka they like your idea. Be present on your page so they recognize you as the individual, and make great rewards available. And the rewards are split up into 4 categories. So we've got products and services, experiences and events, sponsorship and membership opportunities, and general thank yous. So it's best to just consider what you intend to do as a business or an enterprise. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel here. You can think about what you want to offer as a business and pre-sell those as a rewards. But you can ask other people to contribute rewards to your campaign as well. But the best thing to do is to look at other campaigns to get a sense of what they've done before you, because there'll be lots of people who have crowdfunded for similar reasons, and that can give you a good idea. But we'd need a longer session to go into a bit more information about how to choose them. So last bit, running the project. You want to make sure that everyone you speak to has a role to play in your crowdfunding campaign, where we talk about the minimum and the maximum. The minimum someone can do to support you is to share the project. The maximum they could do is make a financial contribution. And in the middle, they could even offer a reward. So we want to find out exactly by speaking with people to always get a result from that conversation, to do one or all of those 3 things. And your marketing plan, it means that before you start, you can lock in commitments from these individuals who you've identified in your network map, who can commit to these contributions by sharing the page, offering a reward, or making a financial pledge on specific dates across the 4 weeks that you've got. So last slide, to make sure we're on the same page, you want to invest as much time as you can in the process. The more preparation you do, the more confident you feel and the more success you'll have. Crowdfunding is a social exercise. You can't do it in isolation. You've got to talk to people. The more personal and direct your approach, the better the result. There isn't a community of people shopping the internet for campaigns to support. No promotion means no page visits and therefore no pledges. You've got to get out there. Relying on just one group or individual to fund a campaign is too risky. But that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much for your attention and questions. Do follow me on Instagram at _crowdfunding coach. And I'll be posting lots of different things about how to run a world-class crowdfunding campaign. That's all I've got. So Adele, you mentioned you've got a little bit at the end.
Thanks, Bertie. Does everybody want to give Bertie a big round of applause? Thanks, Bertie.
Yay.
Oh my gosh, we're so lucky. You guys
Thank
have no
you.
idea, because like Bertie really has run literally like so many crowdfunder campaigns, and even was the crowdfunding coach at crowdfunder.co.uk. He's like the maverick, you guys. Very cool. Or not the maverick, the master, sorry, and a maverick. Why not? So I just put your handle in the chat. Bertie, maybe you can put your Instagram link. Maybe some people want to follow you. I also put in, you'll see the Turn Crowdfunder landing page at crowdfunder.co.uk. If you want a crowdfunder, if you're thinking, maybe, why not? Go and check out those campaigns. We've got commercial campaigns for commercial businesses, enterprises. We've also got charity campaigns and social enterprise campaigns and community organizations up there. So it's all the past 3 years, all the turn stories, videos. You can check out what target goals they set, what they met, what kinds of rewards people were giving. So there's really so many different types of campaigns there. And this is what I wanted to say before we close, is that I actually can help you to create your crowdfunding campaign. If you want to create a crowdfunding campaign, I will just show you this QR code here. You can take your phone, turn on your camera and scan this QR code, or you can go to bit.ly/crowdfunding drop-in. Okay, that actually brings you straight to a link with me. First, speak to your coach, take a look at that Turn crowdfunding landing page and decide whether or not you would like to try a crowdfunder. And then if you're sure you do, you can book a drop-in with me and I can help you to tell your story. Okay, so if you'd like to do that, then please do, and I will see you guys back in the main room. Thank you so much again, Birdie.
Thanks,
if you have-
everyone.
Hey, can I put the link? Can I put the QR code back, please? Just for a second.
That link that I just had there.
Yeah.
Yeah, here, I'll put it in. But also we can share it with you later, don't worry.
Oh, that would be great.
bit.ly/crowdfunding drop-in. Like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you very much.
Okay. And then you guys, if you have any questions for Birdie, just let me know or let your coach know, and maybe we can funnel them over to Birdie ourselves and then get you the answers. Okay. Nice one. Bye, guys.